Hi, this is Trevor.
And this is James.
From History on the Move.
And we're here today at the Restoration Shop at the B&O Railroad Museum for our second restoration review.
And also some updates. So what we want to convey to you is that if you watch the restoration review number uno, that's one for all of you English speakers in the crowd, there was some information in there that was, we'll call it, that was James and I freewheeling as to what we saw in front of us. So what we want to do, though, is convey some information. Jamie Partridge, one of the restorationists and the project manager, kindly gave us some updates and kind of led us through the straight and narrows here. So this is going to be a two-part video, right? We're going to start off the first one where James and I are going to walk around and correct the errors of our ways.
And show you a couple new updates, and then we're going to go and show you the updates on the American Freedom Train number 1 out back.
So stay tuned. We always say it's going to be fun, but most of the time it is. Okay, so I'm in front of 5300's tender here, and James is behind the camera. So together we're going to give you what I think is a great analysis and, more importantly, an update on this thing. Yeah,
so I think we can see George's really great workmanship here. That's George Harwood,
this is all him.
One of our lead restorationists, and we can see this repair here that is part of the historical fabric of the locomotive. Now, George wants his repairs to blend in and be as seamless as possible since, well, this is a chapter in the history of the engine. It's not a part of its history and service.
Correct. And that's the one thing I will say that I absolutely love about George, amongst many things. He's a wonderful human being, but I commend him to no end because he wants to be in the background. He wants his work to be, and that's also part of restoration, as I've talked to Jamie and George off camera, is that they want their work to be, they want to be known for their work, they want to be remembered for their work, but things like this, where it's a seam going across, you should not really see that because that's not part of the quote-unquote historical fabric. Like James is pointing out, this B&O Railroad patch from, could be any number of shops, Cumberland, Mount Clair, who knows. This is part of the original fabric, the historical fabric of the engine. That's what Jamie and George and anybody in the historic preservation community really prides themselves on. Let's keep going.
Another interesting thing regarding the tender is that originally when this locomotive was built, it was meant to have a water scoop mounted between the trucks underneath here.
Oh, you can kind of see, you can follow my finger. You can kind of see it. Maybe not the best. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see.
But underneath the tender here, and that allowed, at speed, the locomotive was able to pick up water instead of having to stop to refill. So those have long since been removed, but there's some of that infrastructure is still there, and inside the tender there are baffles to keep the, essentially to keep the water from shooting out the top of the tender as it was being refilled.
Something else I want to point out is the reason why you see pictures here is tomorrow we have a shop tour, and so Jamie and George love to showcase their work, and I really do appreciate that about them.
And this is a great look at, you can see here how rotted out this tender was before the wonderful work done here.
So this tender went from a whole lot of rain to a whole lot of love. Boy, that was really cheesy, but let's keep going. Let's go. So something else like George, what I like is that he left stuff like this intact. This is a railroad repair, we'll call it, which to me is fascinating because that is part of the historical fabric of these things.
Yes, and you know, rail equipment is meant to stay in service. It's not necessarily meant to be pretty.
Nope, that is correct. And any noise you hear in the background, let me preface this, any noise you hear are the guys from FMW. They're currently working on the Freedom Train. So if you hear air compressors, hammers, and other tools going on in the background, that's why.
So another thing that we'd like to point out is right here you can see this Stoker motor, and we kind of highlighted this in our last video.
Lighting's not that great, folks, so bear with us here.
But originally this was full of over 1,000 pounds of junk and
rust, debris, coal, God knows what else.
This whole auger, all of this, the Stoker motor fabric here. See if I can get a little bit of light in there.
Ooh,
there we go.
The standard Stoker company.
Yeah. And this was all cleaned out using a custom pressure washer, and it really gives a This allows you to get a good look at all of the mechanism and that sort of thing, which are meant to allow the auger as well as the Stoker motor to...
You can follow my finger there, James. So this is literally just a mini steam engine, okay? So it's got 2 cylinders. This is the crank here. As this turns, there is basically, I come from the automotive repair world, but this would be called a drive shaft. But this is a line shaft, drive shaft. It is a turn shaft that then spins what looks like another gear set down there. And then that gear set then turns the giant Stoker that is inside of here.
Yep, and that,
which you see here with a giant U-joint on the end.
Another thing is this entire assembly is able to move back and forth and articulate with the engine to keep it feeding coal to the rest into the firebox.
All right, so let's keep moving here. So something else I want to point out is that this the tender is not original to this engine. So this was not 5300's actual tender from Baldwin 1927. So this has been obviously tender, and this was common back in the day. Like James pointed out a few seconds ago, was that the job of the railroad was to get the train over the road and get it going no matter what. So sometimes they'd have to swap out tenders. And that was just par for the course back then. So that's something I want to point out about this. And if we keep moving here, we'll come back. We talked about the scoop. Oh, the taillight reflector. Let's talk about that because I believe that's still on the bench.
It is. It's right here.
Where is here? Oh, there it is.
Already installed. You can see that. George Harwood, our, again, restorationist, made this from scratch using some of the leftover material from the nose of the EA51 to make that the EA51, the B&O.
And so he used what I think is neat because it is a custom-made English wheel.
Yes.
And before we leave to actually, you know what? While I'm just bantering, I'll put in a quick little B-roll of the custom wheel so that way you guys get an idea, because this is a work of art that George has made for himself.
All right, so we are here in the front of the engine of the 5300. We just wanted to point out a couple things here. These aluminum cast B&O emblems were made. We have, at the museum, we have a number of these. We keep them in storage in case any project requires them. They were cast a number of years ago.
Many years ago.
These Smokebox door dogs. I said they were cast originally. They're not. They're simply fabricated. Many of them required some repair.
Lots of welding.
Yes, lots of welding. Some of them were broken. I actually talked to George about those, and he said these were fabricated. Similarly, this number plate here, while this was on display at the museum, this just resided on the front of these numbers resided on the front of the Smokebox door here, where there should be a Capitol Dome emblem. And actually Trevor was able to source some historical photos that showed the emblem on the front here and the 5300 number up here by the headlight. And George fabricated a new surround for those, so it has this nice raised perimeter.
Yes, and so again, like James said, I was able to source a few of these. So I found these photos online, of all things on eBay. They're original photos. Somebody, it's hard to find these things. You really have to do some keyword searching, which is something I've got good at as a history major over the years. But here's an example of those photos. The year on this one is, I believe, the either late 40s or early 50s. You can tell it has the box block driver here. This is pretty much as it looked as it came out of service. And then this is an earlier photo. I believe this was from the mid to late 30s. And you can see it still has the spoked center driver, and it does not have the same, the Capitol Dome emblem is not there. So I just want to point that out. I am always happy to help Jamie and George anyway, as a collector of railroad photos. If there's something out there that these guys are working on, and if it helps them with the restoration, why not?
The one last thing I think we'd like to showcase on this engine is coming up to the side of it here. We can see one of the safety valves on this, on the top of the engine was missing. So George fabricated a very well done dummy valve. That's this one right here.
And he actually used all scrap steel.
Yes, using all scrap steel. He welded this component together, and it fits right in place where the original would have been. And I just think that's pretty cool. So we can see right here that
don't mind our lighting here either, because we're in a really tough spot. So.
Our restoration team took all of the boiler jacketing off the bottom of here. There were probably several thousand pounds of debris that were pressure washed off, and it was all degreased, rust neutralized, and it was primed. You can see that red here.
That's the brown stuff.
Yep. And
so this is Douglas fir. It's basically 2x.
Yep. And these are to leave a little bit of spacing to put that boiler jacket back on, because originally
it would have had the good old white stuff known as
asbestos.
Asbestos.
Also, on this side of the firebox, you can see that there is a fair amount of needle gutting that's been done. That was done by one of the volunteers here at the museum.
Because this side looked pretty beat up.
Yep.
Something I also want to point out is, we talked about this last time in the first restoration review, is so these studs that come out have the threads on the end. There was originally, let me turn my light off here so none of us go blind. There was originally a jacketing of sorts that went, like a cladding, I call it a cladding, that went down and over this stuff. And you can see here, this was one of the spacers. You can't see because the light's not on. Let's try this again, Trevor. Here's the spacer for it. So that would have sat here. So the jacketing, or the cladding would have came like this. It would have had the insulation, the asbestos stuff here. And then there's a nut that would have gone over and tightened that into place. So I talked to Jamie and George about this, and they're not, the verdict's not out as to whether or not they're going to actually put that back in place. Yeah. Again, it depends on funding. It also depends on what date this is going to be dated to in terms of the paint job, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of factors involved here on this one. So what else do we need to talk about here? So the sand dome, did you talk about? You did not talk about the sand. Well, let's take you upstairs one more time and have a look at the sand dome. Okay, so we are now on the running boards. So this is something I want to point out, because I actually watched George in real time do this. So let me kind of get you up here. And so what he did was, this originally was crushed and pushed down. This had kind of fallen in on itself. So what he did was, he welded these angle irons. I can't do that, but I'll make it look like my hand is one. He welded these angle irons on here, and then he used the crane, which is, well, was above us, but it's over here. He used that as his, not a press, what would you call it? Well, as his force of hydraulic leverage. And he would pull it up different spots along here with those brackets. And I thought that was really neat to watch him. Again, George is the master craftsman of this stuff, master metal worker. And I mean, you can see he was able to get that back out and then put the sand dome top. So this is what they would have, back in the day, this is what they would have taken off, and sand would have gone inside. I'm kind of curious myself what it looks like. And well, it looks like a sand dome. So that's what that's all about. And as one thing that, though, the part of this, so that's an update as well as what James pointed out a few minutes ago, which is that the newest thing since the last time we did Restoration Review Uno is that safety valve, the mock safety valve. So that's, George has got caught up in other stuff. He has to do any fabricating. He's our guy, so he gets pulled into fabrication stuff here and there for rail ops, or people like that need it. So let's get back on the ground and do some more looking. Okay, so let's take a look, see here. So one thing I want to point out is the jacketing, okay? And the jacketing was actually replaced in the 70s when they did the asbestos abatement. So all that fun stuff, the insulation that was is underneath the jacketing and against the boiler itself, the pressure vessel itself, was abated in the 70s. And so the jacketing at that time would have been from the 50s when they retired the engine. So it was removed and it was replaced with the jacketing that you see here. Something I want to note is, I talked to Jamie about this, and the jacketing it's such a thin gauge metal. James, help me here. Probably 18 gauge-ish metal. So very thin. It's not something you want a needle gun, especially old steel, right? Like from the 70s. That thin, where I don't see them. I don't think Jamie's going to be needle gunning that. How they may just paint and primer, and this could be definitely an update that we do in a future video next time I talk to Jamie about this. So for right now, I think that covers just about everything for 5300. Let's take a look and get you some updates, some real updates on 3316, the Boattail observation car. Okay, so we have moved inside here to the 3316. This is the Pullman built Boattail observation car. So let's correct some errors of our ways. And you might have to turn the light on here, James, but I want to talk about this. So this is 3/16 plywood. You can see it up top, 3/16 plywood. And this has a velour to it that Jamie put on here. And this was to match the original specs that came out of the Pullman book that said that this is what it would have had coming out of the factory.
That red vinyl, you can see that right there.
That is just a red vinyl covering. Something else I want to point out is if we look at the ceiling, and as well, I believe, because this has been kind of covered, you can see it here too, to have this whole thing painted, it was just painted by an outside contractor. Jamie removed all of the vents, the HVAC covers, and I don't see them in here. The speaker covers, there were speaker covers in here, so you know, if they made an announcement, next station stop, blah blah blah, you know, the conductor could tell people. But all of those were removed in order for the contractor to come in and just spray paint this and kind of seal everything up. So and then as you can see now, this stuff is going back in, and I have to say I am pretty impressed. I don't know if this is the final color, but that's something in a future restoration review video that we can talk to Jamie about. So this is something that James is going to talk about, but we walked past this, and shame on us for doing that. We walked past this last time, so take it away, James.
Well, it was so well done, we thought it was original. Right here, this display case was missing from the car. Jamie built this. He designed this from pictures and also from taking measurements from the paint up here, the outline left in the paint up here, and as well as the shape of this countertop. This was subcontracted out, but we have this really nice display cabinet.
Beautiful, absolutely.
You see, we've got some antique beer cans in there right now, among other things.
Because this is where they would have kept the alcohol. This is basically the alcohol, we'll call it display case, for lack of a better term.
As well, we want to point out, you can see here, we want to talk a little bit about the floor. So the existing concrete floor failed. That was in here. It contained asbestos.
Bad news bears.
So the entire concrete floor had to be removed and abated. So the metal floor decking, Jamie primed, prepared, he painted that, and then working with the subcontractor, built this epoxy and fiberglass replacement floor, and
which looks epic, by the way.
I think this
is very well done.
Wonderful replacement.
Kudos, Jamie. Kudos.
Yes.
I know you can't see me because the light's not on, but kudos.
What you can also see right here, we pointed this out in the last video. We weren't sure what this was. This is a call station for the steward or for the bartender. So you would be able to press this button, and the appropriate steward would be notified that you needed assistance, kind of like on an airplane these days.
Yes, except this was, I don't know if this is mechanical. It looks like it's a mechanical thing. So that's a reset button, essentially, is what that is. Whether or not they're going to have that restored and brought back to functional use, anybody's guess at this point. So let's, we go back to what we said before, the cherry blossoms. That's pretty neat. Again, that is original to the car. And most likely installed by either the B&O itself.
Yes. The plexiglass covering over them most likely was installed
by the railroad itself.
Whether or not that was in its original service, I'm not sure. Although these are flathead screws here.
Yes.
So most likely that's pretty old.
Yeah, that's easily pre-70s. That I can tell you, because ain't nobody using flathead screws anymore.
The other thing that has been replaced, we pointed this out last time, this is gold tinted mirrored glass per the original Pullman specifications. This was all measured out and replaced.
It just looks phenomenal.
It looks fantastic.
Phenomenal. So one thing that we want to talk about is the the thing that you didn't get to see last time. Why? Because it was taped off because they were painting it. So hang tight. We're going to take you in to see something that you didn't see before.
All right, so here at the end of the corridor that we just went down, we can see that we have 2 bathrooms. This is the women's room here. You see that's been repainted. Got the window in it with the frosted glass over it.
Privacy, people, privacy.
And on this side, we have the men's room.
Wait, have you used this one before?
I have not.
Thank God. All right, so it seems we've lost audio on this, so I will stand in and talk in the meantime. But so the B&O in 1937 implemented a service called the Stewardess-Nurse position, and these were registered nurses that would come in and act as nurses, provide first aid, any kind of medical treatment, or something smaller on the nurse level to infants and adults as well. And so James has taken us inside of that compartment, the stewardess nurse compartment here on the Washington. So what he's pointing out is there's we believe is the original toilet, not 100%, but it sure looks like a Pullman design from back in the day. Modern stuff uses containment toilets, so where when you flush it, all that stuff goes into a giant container, hence the name, and then it gets pumped out at the station. So behind me right now is a giant litany. There is a giant thing of shelves, and that was actually a medicine cabinet, and so that would have been for, again, the nurse role of the stewardess-nurse. So find that kind of unique. Hopefully they stock, I should say, not restock, but maybe restock, stock that with first aid supplies and things like that, because the stewardess-nurse was a very unique position, as I said, and something that provided the B&O with some really good advertising to say, hey, bring your infants with you. We have, these nurses on board that can take care of them and help them if they're having a colicky fit or, whatever, or just provide a break for the moms that were on there holding these infants and whatnot on long trips. So really unique, something that the B&O first started on the Shenandoah train, passenger train, which emanated in New York and terminated in Chicago. And then later, after it was proven a success on the Shenandoah, these nurses went on to the National Limited and a few other ones as well, the Royal Blue, the Diplomat, Cincinnatian, etc., etc. But unfortunately, that service would come to an end in 1963 as the B&O and other railroads realized that the passenger train was dying out rather fast. So here I'm pointing to the overhead rack here. The stewardess nurse could put her belongings up there, suitcases, whatever. Well, I mean, not suitcase, but here's the air vents here. So Jamie had just put a polish on that. That looks absolutely amazing. And right along that wall, where James, to the left, James's left, your right as you look at us, is where the berth is. There's a single berth in there, and that's where the stewardess nurse would be able to sleep. Yep, here I am pointing to it. So Jamie's getting that redone. It's going to be reupholstered and some other good stuff. So that will be put back in. There's a cool little folding table, so the stewardess nurse could pull out the medical supplies or maybe write a note, put it on there. There's another good shot of the medicine cabinet. I believe that had a light somewhere on there. There's the fan. Jamie is going to be restoring that fan as well, put a new blade on it, etc., etc. So that's pretty neat. So I'll stop here because I'm pretty sure the next clip has audio. All right, folks, so here's the big reveal. Above me and around me, you can see that this is replacement, we'll call it, this replacement lighting. And what it was is originally, from the factory, 1939, Pullman, this would have had fluorescent lights. And what's really neat is, CCB, we have a program here at the B&O Railroad Museum that is run by several individuals, and it is in unison and in conjunction with CCBC. And the program there is phenomenal. That's going to be a separate video. We'll talk about that program and what it does and all that good stuff in a separate video. That's a different measure for a different time. But those students, those CCBC students helped Jamie in the fact that they did the replacement of these, and they replaced the fluorescent elements in here with LEDs. So the neat part about that is those kids got to learn electrical, right? That is part of their program. They got to learn how to do, we'll call it fairly simple electrical work. And I think that is absolutely phenomenal. So if you want to follow me here, what they did was so Jamie ran 18 gauge wire. For those of you that don't understand wiring, we'll get a light in here. So hopefully this shows up. There we go. So this is 18 gauge wiring. And what this is, so real quick, what wiring is sized in the thickness of the conductor. And this is the conductor itself, not the conductor on the train. But the conductor is the actual metallic part that carries the electrons and flows. And so how that works is there's a jacketing around it. And so we'll use these. So this is our wire strippers. And you see how they have the numbers here? Well, if you were to strip back the insulation and put this through, it is picture perfect on 18. So it slides in and out. So that's how you would know that this is 18, because it's way too big for 16. And it does not, I can't get that inside of 20 to 22. So all of this was run with new 18 gauge wiring. I will get in touch with Jamie for a further follow-up about this as to what the rest of this is going to look like. But there is going to be some epic changes in terms of how this is lit and how neat and the atmosphere that you're going to feel inside of 3316 when you see it next. All right, so we have moved outside. So we are done with 3316 for the time being. So we're outside in front of American Freedom Train numero uno. So something I want to point out is they are all done right now media blasting. And media blasting is essentially, think about this, when you go to the beach, that sand that you're stepping on is very round. If you were to put it under a microscope, it's very round in nature. If you were to come here, let's get a scoop of this. If you were to take a look at this, which is what media blasting is, if you were to put this under a microscope, the edges of it would be rather sharp and abrasive. And for good reason, because this, as it hits the steel, right, like, of course I can't do this, but as it hits at the PSI of the compressor which you're using, which is anywhere from 80 to 100, maybe 120 PSI, it's coming out of that gun. As it hits it at that velocity, it's also taking the paint off, but leaving the steel and or metal that's underneath intact. So that's the big difference between this versus media versus sand. Is again, media is very sharp in granulation, and sand is, like at the beach, is rather round. So as you can see, they have done ref services of the contractors that did this. They did a phenomenal job. They've primed it as well. So everything in black here has been primed. Something that we want to point out are the cab corners here. We were talking to the FMW, and so they're going to be replacing, you can see the rot up there. That's going to get replaced. And we'll put some B-roll over top of this, but of us up on a big ladder there taking a look at it. But yeah, you're gonna see all that, and that's going to get replaced. And there's little things too. If we go back on the other side, we're going to show you also the new jacketing. Well, how they're going to be installing the new jacketing. So hang tight. All right, so we've moved over to the other side of 2101 or AFT1. And as you can see, they are using foam in place of what would be the lagging or the insulation that sits on the boiler. So the jacketing will sit on top of that. And you can see what do you call them, spacers that are sitting on top of those studs. And that's where the jacketing is going to sit on. And also to note, the jacketing, which walk with me here, we'll go around the other side. The jacketing that's sitting over here, this is going to be this has already been taken off, obviously, as you can see. And what's going to happen is this is going to be traced out onto giant sheets of cardboard. It's going to be fitted back onto there. And then once they know it's a good fit, they're going to put new 18 gauge steel, which is essentially what this is, new 18 gauge steel in its place. And again, use those cardboard templates as the pattern. So all new fresh steel is going to go back on American Freedom Train 1. And we'll find out as we go along also, like what's going to happen to the sand dome and the steam dome and all those coverings as well, because I haven't had a chance to talk to FMW yet, but we'll find out and we'll cue you in on that in the next episode. But this is absolutely just, they are making very good progress on this. And so James and I are very happy to be able to bring this to you. So we'll cut it here and we'll wrap this guy up.
We hope you've enjoyed this restoration review here at the B&O Railroad Museum. As always, I'm James.
And I'm Trevor. And this is
History on the Move.
And stay tuned for the next restoration review, number 3. And we'll see what happens in the meantime and what comes up. Also, stay tuned to the channel. We got some really good content coming your way. Take care.